All right. Well, while we're continuing to let folks into the class, we can start with a warm welcome. Just want to welcome all of you to our Thrive Brunch event, which is our celebration of the end of the year. Really excited for those who will be sticking around to join us at 11 a.m. Eastern for our celebration with students. But to kick us off, we have our virtual cooking class with Chris Morgan, award-winning chef. We are so excited to have him here with us. So just a quick anecdote, I actually went to high school with Chris. And even as he's grown to be all big, bad, and famous, he's continued to support our organization in different ways. And I personally am just so grateful for his support. So I do want to spend some time to brag about him, just so you know what kind of presence you all are in for this class. So a native of Northern Virginia, Bammy's co-owner and co-executive chef. And if you haven't been to Bammy's yet, go. It's the Navy Yard in DC, so definitely check it out. But Chris has traveled across the world. He always knew he wanted to return to DC to open his first restaurant. Prior to Bammy's, Chris, alongside Gerald Addison, served as co-owner and co-executive chef of DC's award-winning sister restaurants Compass Rose and Maidon, also two restaurants that you have to check out. Over the course of 3 years with them at the helm, Maidon was awarded a Michelin star, named a James Beard semifinalist, and received critical acclaim from local, regional, and national press, including being named #2 Best New Restaurant in America by Bon Appetit, a top 10 Best New Restaurant by Food and Wine, a Best New Restaurant in America by GQ, and one of Eater's 18 Best New Restaurants in America. So that is just amazing, Chris. Super proud of all you've been able to accomplish. And again, that you've continued to support us even amidst your busy schedule of opening restaurants and crushing it. So we're so excited to have you here. And I am excited to follow along. I got my ingredients right here, ready to go. So I'll let you take it away from here.
Thank you, Lauren. Hey, everybody. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Chris. Super happy to be able to support Our Minds Matter, and really happy Lauren asked me to do this. So we're going to get started. Today, we're going to be making Kuku Esfenaj. So we cooked a ton of, she mentioned Maidon. That's the restaurant where I was before opening Bammy's. We cooked a lot of Iranian, Persian food. I grew up with Lauren in Northern Virginia and was very fortunate to be invited into my friends' homes who were from Iran, and learned a lot of fun recipes. And that's what kind of kicked off my excitement for food from that part of the world. So today you're gonna be making one of my favorite dishes for breakfast or brunch called Kuku Esfenaj. It is basically an Iranian frittata, but the difference between a frittata and kuku is there's a lot less egg and a lot more herbs and vegetables. In Iranian cuisine, you'll often find they treat herbs as vegetables. So whereas someone would put, a quarter cup of parsley into a recipe, you'll see in Iranian food they'll throw in like 3 cups of it, and it's phenomenal. I love their applications of herbs, and this is a fun way to kind of kick it off. So we're going to start off by caramelizing our onions. So grab your onion, and I'm going to show you guys how I like to cut these. So if you see the root end here on this side, you've got the tip. You're going to turn it sideways, and you're going to cut opposite of the root end, just like so, exposing the rings on this side. And then flip over your onion, and then you're going to cut through the root. So right down the middle. All right. Then you're going to peel the outside, something you're all probably very familiar with. I believe the recipe calls for 2 full onions. Beautiful. I'm not used to cooking with a recipe in front of me, so you'll have to forgive me for having to look back and forth. But all right, so here's the fun part. This is how we cut onions in a professional kitchen when we're dicing them. So I'll give everybody a couple seconds here. You're going to take your knife and you're going to score 3 times across the bottom. So you're going to do one here like that. Keep your fingers back. Another like that. And then one time at the top. And then now that you have your 3 even layers, see how it's split apart? You're going to go at the top and just do incisions all the way down. And this is how you can choose how thick or how small you want them diced. Is the fun part is when you turn, it saves you a ton of time. So now you did this like crosshatch work. You went in one way and then across the top. All right. And then you're going to turn the onion like this again, and you're going to cut down through the onion. Kind of forming those same little cubes. So you want to do it like as if you're trying to cut a perfect square. And if it worked out, you'll have nice little cubies of onions. And they're perfectly uniform. If they're not, it's totally okay. The recipe is not reliant on it, I promise you. As long as onions are cut and they're in there and we get them in the pan, they're going to taste just fine. So we're going to do that with all of our onions. So I'm going to demonstrate again. And let me know if I'm moving too quickly. So onion again, 3 slits, one at the bottom, one at the middle, one at the top, okay? And then all the way, you want to go as close to the root as you can, because then you're just going to be able to use more of your onion. And then you're going to spin again. I'll wait a second for everybody to catch up. Then we're going to slice through the top. Once again, getting those nice little cubes. It allows, my wife likes to call these confetti onions, which I find hilarious. It allows for a nice even cook. Anytime when you're in a kitchen, the reason you want to keep things uniform is when you're cooking anything for a set amount of minutes or whatever it is, you have nice uniform pieces to work with. Makes it a lot easier. We're going to go into the second onion. Once again, if it's taking you a second or two longer, no worries. I'll give everybody time to catch up before we start cooking. But take off the butt end. Leave yourself with the root, cut straight through the middle, flat at the bottom. Sharp knives very much help. My mother always gets nervous when she comes into my kitchen and uses my knives, but they definitely help, and they help with accidents too. So we're gonna go 3 incisions, same as before.
Awesome, Chris. We're seeing in the chat that thanks for sharing the technique for dicing. Curious if you have any, I've heard, and I don't know if they're all myths or how to keep your eyes from watering and crying.
I was wondering.
Chewing gum. What's the strategy for you? Are you just now
bread? I have found that bread actually, believe it or not, helps. I don't know if that's just a wives' tale, but I personally have found that works. What I highly recommend, though, and I know this is kind of a, I mean, the best thing to have is a sharp knife, because what happens is when you're breaking through the cell walls of the onion and all that liquid releases, it goes into the air, and that's what's getting in your eyes. My eyes aren't watering right now because my knife's incredibly sharp. If you have, the more dull the knife is, the more your eyes will water. Or if you're using like a bread knife, that'll really make your eyes water because you're going through with a serrated blade. But yeah, I think bread, I've never tried gum. I do believe bread works.
And you mean eating bread?
Like putting a piece of bread in your mouth.
Okay.
I mean, it's one that I believe in. I don't know if it actually works. Maybe it's a placebo effect, but
right.
Yeah. When I worked in Lake Tahoe over 10 years ago, we had to cut 150 pounds of onions a day. And my buddy and I used to wear ski goggles. So if you have those lying around, feel free to grab them. That definitely helps. Just gonna get rid of my trash here. All right, I'll give everybody a second to catch up and then we'll get to cooking some onions. All right, Al, you ready to follow me here in a second? Let's wait, just so everybody's caught up. Think we're ready to move to the stove?
So we have one more question. Can you share any knife sharpening tool that you use and best practice for use? How often do you sharpen your knives?
I highly recommend. It's fun. It's fun to learn. It does take a little more time and technique, but getting sharpening stones, and there's some really inexpensive ones on Amazon. As long as the reviews are good, you're gonna be hard pressed to find one that's not great. They all basically do the same thing, and company to company, there's not much variation unless you're going super high end. But sharpening stones are basically just different variations of grit on, stone, kind of like sandpaper in sharpening, anything. My favorite company. Oh man, I'll have to get back to you and email that. I'm blanking on the name of it, but it's quite easy. It is something you're going to want to watch a YouTube video on because there is some technique involved, but you will be very happy. And it's kind of a fun thing. I do it at my restaurant because I use my knives a ton, probably once a week. Sometimes more. It's actually better not to do it too much, but if you're doing it in a home kitchen, you can do it once a month and be more than fine. But I find it to be hyper therapeutic. You're basically repeating the same motion with a knife. It's kind of soothing. I enjoy it. So for me, it's kind of like a form of meditation. I do it, like I said, once a week at my restaurant or at home. But you can also get, the knife sharpeners that you can buy, the electric ones or whatever online also work. But for me, there's, the best way to do it definitely is the stone. And then you can buy what's called a steel. So believe it or not, all knives have teeth. So all blades actually are serrated. So with a stone, you're sharpening one side of it, where with a steel, which is those long rods, sharpening rods, you're actually honing the knife, it's called, which is where you're bringing the teeth back to center. No, that's a lot of information, but the perfect combo is a steel and some stones.
Well, maybe last knife question, maybe not. Do knives go in the dishwasher?
No.
No.
Yeah, my wife is behind me laughing because I call her out on that all the time.
Okay.
It's not the end of the world. It's just, I like to not wash knives and dry them right away, especially if your knife is like carbon steel or something where it can rust. For me, even if it's stainless, I like to hand wash everything. It's also, if you have sharp knives, you're risking cutting yourself. I like to just make sure I wash everything by hand, put it away, dry it. It's where it needs to be. But I don't think you're not going to ruin many knives, but the knife handle can sometimes come apart over time too. So cool.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right, let's go cook some onions. All right, my wife's gonna follow me here. Sorry, I'm cooking living room table or dining room table to kitchen here. So just gonna set your pan to medium-high heat. Yep, I can see. Gonna add the oil. So I'm gonna let it heat up for just a little bit and then kind of swirl the pan to coat it just because you have a lot of onions here. We're not too worried about, even disbursement of the onions. We're basically gonna come back and check on these. I'm like 15 feet away from where they'll be cooking. So I'm just gonna repeatedly jump over to check on them. The idea is you have it at a nice heat, depending on your stovetop, obviously, where you're catching a little bit of color on the bottom, and you just, as you allow the bottom to develop a little color, and then what you'll do is you'll just kind of go underneath with a spatula and flip the onions over, or mix them so that the ones that don't have color yet or aren't starting to caramelize do have an opportunity to do so. If you continue to move the onions too much, you won't allow the sugars to caramelize. So the idea is you do kind of want to let it sit there for a little bit. It is going to take a few minutes, but we'll be doing other stuff in the meantime. So I like to get my pan nice and warm before cruising, and you can tell here when the oil starts to move quickly, that's when you're kind of in your golden zone here. So I'm going to go ahead and start adding my onions, and I'm just going to let these sit. All right. As so, and we'll go back and work on our vegetable cutting for everything else, and we'll come back and check on these. But if it's next to you and you start to hear it sizzling, that's a good thing. Do not get excited and start moving the onions quite yet. We want to let those caramelize nicely. Obviously, if you're starting to get too much color, turn your stove down. Everybody's stovetops are different. I'm renting this house, and I absolutely hate induction burners, but gas burners are the one way I can actually tell how hot something is. But anyway, we're going to move on to the next step here. So everyone's ovens, if you haven't already done so, preheat them to 400 Fahrenheit. We're going to want that oven nice and hot for when we finish the recipe, and we'll get everything going. All right. So first, we're just going to start with the measing out, as it's called in kitchens, of our recipe. So first, what we're going to want to do is get our baking powder. You grab your teaspoon, and you're just going to want to take a teaspoon of baking powder and set it off to the side in a bowl. So I would get a separate bowl where you can kind of mix all of your dried spices, which we're going to do now, and just go ahead and start adding them in together. So I have mine already measured out here. I'm just going to put that in a bowl off to the side. Now, one of the things I love about Kuku is it uses baking powder. Baking powder is heat activated, and when it activates with the heat, it releases carbon dioxide with whatever it's cooking with. So in the case of eggs, it's going to release, and the carbon dioxide needs to go somewhere that's going to create air pockets. So it naturally makes the eggs more fluffy. It's a cool technique if you want to add it to scrambled eggs, not too much. It's basic, so it doesn't carry a ton of, it won't make anything super bitter or unpleasant in flavor, but a fun technique when making even scrambled eggs to make them more fluffy is to add a tiny bit of baking powder. But in this case, for Kuku. So we've got our baking powder in the bowl. Next up, if you bought it, is Advieh. I am a huge fan of Najmeh Batmanglij. This is her spice blend. Advieh is a classic Persian spice blend. It's a mix of cardamom, cumin, a little bit of cinnamon, rose petals, other things of that nature. You will see this a lot in Persian cooking. Najmeh is a huge inspiration for me. She's taught me a ton about Persian food, and I've been fortunate enough to cook at her home with her. So we're going to add the Advieh now. If you have it, if you do not, it really doesn't matter. You'll still have a beautiful result. All right. And then we're going to add our salt. So a tablespoon of salt. Kosher salt is what I like to use. But any salt will do. You just want to be careful in recipes with using super fine salt sometimes, because the measurements can be a little different. I like kosher salt because you can feel it nice between your fingers, and it has a good salinity. So I'm adding my salt now to my bowl. That's all mixed in. And then black pepper, which I'm going to grind fresh. I prefer to always grind fresh. The recipe, I believe, calls for a teaspoon. Once again, not used to having my recipe by me, but a nice bit of black pepper. You lose all the oils whenever you grind spices in advance and all that nice fragrance. So I like to do everything a la minute. And then we have our turmeric. So we'll add that in there. And spice blend is done. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and chop up our vegetables and herbs. All right. Beautiful. All right, so first on the docket, we're going to do our garlic. So we should have 6 cloves of garlic. Go ahead and peel the garlic if you haven't already. I have mine peeled. I peeled it right before we started. I like to buy whole heads of garlic. The flavor is just far superior. Tricks to peeling garlic. In a pinch, you can shake it between 2 bowls if you want, and it'll peel off the skin, which is kind of a fun technique. It can be quite loud, but a fun way if you have to peel a ton of garlic. I also, if you want to lightly press on the garlic with your thumb, each individual clove, you'll see the peel will kind of break off evenly. You don't want to smash it too much because then you're losing a lot of that garlic flavor. But 6 nicely peeled pieces peeled to get cruising, and I'm gonna go mix my onions. I'll be right back. So my onions are still kind of a ways out from caramelizing. So I'm gonna go back and check on them in a few, and I'll bring y'all with me. But we'll go ahead and start cutting some garlic here. So the way I like to do it, we're gonna mince the garlic is use your knuckles as a protector if you can. And then whatever you're cutting, you want to keep your thumb behind your fingers like this so that you don't cut your thumb. You're going to touch your fingertips here, and your blade kind of sits atop the first kink in your knuckles here on your fingers. And you're just going to want to run the knife down like this. So tip to bottom, kind of rock it like a boat. All right, nice slices. You can also do this with sliced garlic. Does not need to be chopped. Based on the application, you can really cut garlic however you want. It really just depends, whether you're caramelizing it, doing it raw, what have you. In this case, we are going to be cooking the garlic raw. So I'm going to do it minced. That way you don't get a whole slice of raw garlic. Once again, just grabbing the clove, using my knuckles to protect my hand, my fingertips, and my thumb.
Chris, we had a question come in. What other dishes might be good with the Advia, if I said that correctly, blend?
Advia, yeah. Advia. There's so many. There's beautiful rice dishes that are traditional using Advia. They're really nice on meats, meat marinades, really delicious with fish. I've done, in the past, I've done lamb marinated with Advia and a little bit of olive oil and garlic, like a roasted leg of lamb. It's beautiful. You have to be careful with Advia because it does have hard spices. And when you roast hard spices at a high temperature, you can burn the hard spices, causing them to become acrid or bitter. So you have to avoid that. If you Google, Persian recipes using Advia, you'll come up with a ton of fun stuff to play around with. It is a fun thing in your pantry to have. It's not something that you're every day gonna feel comfortable using unless you've practiced with it a couple times, because it is a particularly strong flavor. But I love having it in my pantry, and I try to use it as often as I can. It is also just excellent thrown into eggs, like we are now. Like even if you're just doing like quick, eggs for breakfast in whatever way, just tossing a tiny bit on top or mixing it in is phenomenal. So,
cool. And then garlic question: what is your opinion about pressed garlic versus minced?
I do not like pressing garlic. Pressing garlic, you lose a lot of the oils, a lot of that flavor, a lot of that juice. All of that's flavor. It's intended to be in the dish, not on the tool. So whenever you're pressing garlic, you're kind of releasing a lot of that beautiful flavor that would otherwise go into the dish. You notice when you do sliced garlic like this, your cutting board's not wet. All that flavor, it might be on your fingertips and your knife, but other than that, it's staying there. So for me, I prefer to cut everything by hand. It just, and when you get more comfortable doing it, it's less time consuming over time. So once you have all your sliced garlic, I like to line mine up like this in a line. And same exact thing, using my fingers as the guard. We're just going to run our knives through to slowly chop the sliced garlic. So one time through, you'll see there's like some strips that we formed. All right. Then we're going to use the knife's edge to bring everything back to a nice clean line again. And I'm going to turn my line like this and then straighten it back out again. So hopefully those nice long pieces are now turned sideways. Not perfectly, of course, but what you're trying to do here is minimize the amount of knife cuts, because the more times you cut through it, the more flavor you're going to lose. And then you're going to run your knife back through it again. And this can be rough mince. We're not going to get super granular. I'm not too concerned with the pieces being hyper tiny, and you can go back through another time on this one. So we'll do front to back, or side to side, excuse me. Just a couple times until you have nice small pieces. But because, we're eating it raw in there, I mean, it's being baked, but we're not sauteing the garlic. You're going to want to make sure it's small enough. So I'll show you on my knife here. Decently small. There's still a couple bigger pieces, but not too big. Once again, just kind of avoiding those like big chunks of raw garlic. I love raw garlic, but not everyone does. All right. And next up, we're going to be doing our spring onions. So Allie, will you follow me to the kitchen real quick so we can check on the onions in here? Thank you. Spatula, you're good. All right, so mine's still, I can see the edges browning, but I can tell right now by looking at it that I still should wait a second. So you can see at the bottom of my pan, there's a little bit of brown color. Actually, no, as I pull away, looks like we're getting nice caramelization. So I am going to give this a little bit of a turn here. Nice little bit of brown color on the bottom, nothing crazy. But you get a good, nice layer of caramelization in there. Now that that's moving, I'm just going to give it a little toss, give it a nice mix, make sure it's all well coated in the oil. And I'm going to set it back down. I'm going to walk away. Now, you do not want to add salt yet. Whenever you add salt to anything, you're pulling the moisture out. So if you're trying to caramelize anything, and this is a big mistake in cooking, outside of meat, depending on the meat, it's where it gets complicated. But like onions, mushrooms, whatever you're doing, if you're trying to get color on them, do not add salt. Wait, because when you add salt, you're inherently pulling moisture out of the vegetable when you don't want there to be moisture, which is what you just want the sugars to caramelize. And then when we're done, that's when we can season it, because you've already nicely achieved that caramelized color. All right. Now we're going to be doing, I believe it's a half cup of spring onions chopped. So we're just going to do a slice here. So you want to take your spring onions. I trimmed my tops here. You want to try to get them nice and uniform. You can use the greens, the whites, the whatevers. For me in this recipe, it's not really going to make too much of a difference. I just want that onion flavor. So I'm just going to go do the exact same thing. So do my, my kitchen claw here. Use my knuckles to protect my hand. Once again, kind of in this, right? And you're just going to go through, and we want to get to about a half cup. Just stroke, nice even strokes. Being mindful not to cut your fingers. Size isn't too important here. I love nice chunks of green onion, so if yours are a little bigger, do not even worry about it. All right. Green onions are one of my favorite things on the planet. Raw, grilled. You can do any. I mean, I can eat this any which way and be insanely happy. So I'm probably a little over a half cup there. I'm not gonna get super granular here, but half cup. Once again, the fun part about savory cooking as opposed to baking is there's a little extra green onion, extra flavor. I'm into it. Not a problem. So I'm going to go ahead and just get all my vegetables that are finished into one bowl because we're going to mix those later. So I'm going to swipe my scallions, green onions off my cutting board into a bowl just so we have a nice clean surface here. I'm also going to do the same with my garlic. All right. Garlic's going to go in the bowl as well. So we got 2 of our ingredients in there. 3 more to go. All right. Next up, we're going to do 1 cup of parsley and 1 cup of cilantro. How's everybody doing? Any questions with where we're at right now? Make sure I'm not moving too quickly. Please
Also,
let me know if I am.
Anyone feel free to come off mute if you want to ask a question or continue to drop it in the chat.
I thought this was a good question from Donna asking about washing the knives. I know personally I don't wash my Wusthof knives in the dishwasher, but I do wash my like oyster kind of cheaper knives in the dishwasher. Do you have any recommendations?
He shares not to do dishwasher.
Okay, at all. Okay.
No, I think it depends, like a chef knife or like your like steak knives and things like that can totally go through the dishwasher. But like, any of your Japanese or European handled chef knives or kitchen knives like this, like you'd want to definitely hand wash those. I mean, honestly, you're preserving the longevity. If you have a really nice set of steak knives, I would also probably do those by hand. It just depends, what quality they are and how long you want to keep them for. There's no need to throw them through a cycle that lasts that long and put them in water for that long. That's kind of my point. Where a fork or a spoon, you have no issue. I'm going to step off and stir my onions just because I can smell that they're caramelizing. So I will be right back. Rather than take you with me, just do exactly what we did before and keep it moving.
Sounds good. We have a shout out to Chris's wife for great camera work, and by way of basically not knowing she was agreeing to join us this morning.
She's great. She's sitting on her throne in the corner smiling right now.
We appreciate
teamwork makes the dream work.
We have another question. I normally chop my green onions almost to the root. Is that wrong? Not
at all. I'm going to save these, and I'll be using these later for my own cooking with some other method. I'll often even make sauces, and I'll puree the root into it if they're nice and clean. And I washed these before I got here, or before I brought y'all on. With a sauce that I'm like pureeing, I'll actually put the root end in. I love using every single part of the vegetable. I find that to be very important. One thing I love about Persian cooking is they use the stems of the herbs. They use everything. Middle Eastern food in general, a lot of cuisines do that, but I don't think you see that enough in the US and like American cooking, if you will. So for me, that's important. I am going to bring over my pan of onions because they're basically where I want them to be. In fact, actually, we'll just run to the kitchen real quick so we can I can show you where I'd like everyone to end with the onions, and I'll set mine off to the side. All right, so boiling away here. Nice caramelization. Just give your pan a quick toss. I got nice caramelization on there, a good bit of brown bits. All right, and I'm just going to set these off to the side. Okay. And it says allow them to cool. We're just going to let them cool off to the side. No problem at all. We'll bring them over to the table. Main reason you want to allow them to cool is just so they don't cook the eggs. So now we're going to cut our herbs. or vegetables as they're called in Persian cuisine. One of the other cool recipes, just while we're talking about it, is if you like kuku, after we have this today, there's kuku sabzi, which is the herb kuku. This is the one made with spinach. It's the one I just love spinach, but kuku sabzi is excellent. It's more traditional. So we're going to do 1 cup of parsley and 1 cup of cilantro. So what I'm going to do here is I have a bunch of cilantro. I'm going to fold the top in because I always like to have a nice even plane at the top here. All right. And we're not going to get crazy with this. We're just going to do simple, thin strokes. And the idea is just to have what we call a chiffonade in the kitchen, which is like fine strips. So exact same thing we did before with the scallions, but we're doing it with the herbs now. And I'm going to save all my ends here. And don't worry if there's stems in there, that's good. There's tons of stems going in mine. So idea, once again, if you have a sharp knife here, it's going to be very helpful. You want to make sure that you go all the way to the bottom. So when you follow through on your knife cut, you have a nice even cut across the top. So these cilantro stems I'm going to save. There's nice even pieces here, right? Some are a little bigger. That's totally fine. When everybody's caught up, we're just going to swipe that into our bowl. I'll give everybody a second here. We're going to do the exact same thing with our parsley. All right. I always wash my herbs before using them. Even when, especially if they're coming from a farmer's market, you just got to be, there's often a little bit of grit. All right. Parsley, same thing. So see the whole bunch. I do not worry at all about the stems. I'm just folding the top down, try to get myself a nice even surface. And I'm just going to kind of attack those top leaves here. A little bigger piece there at the top, not a problem. Full cup.
We have a question. How do you store fresh herbs?
Damp paper towel rolled up around it is the best way. So if you take a paper towel or some sort of cloth that you can reuse, preferably, that has holes in it, something that's aerated. There's specific cloths you can buy for that stuff that we use in restaurants, but any kind of microfiber, thin, small towel that allows the vegetable to breathe, but allows it to be damp. It's still a living plant. So you're basically extending the life of the herb itself by doing so. Once again, this is right here. But I will put that into my crisper, my vegetable drawer, just rolled up nice and tight. And you'll see how much longer those herbs will last. You can also put things into a container, especially if you're working on your countertop and you're doing a recipe or whatever. You can sit on your in a container on your countertop, put a damp paper towel over top. That will also help the herbs from wilting. You can also put the stems in water and have those live in like a glass. If I wrap it in a damp towel. All right. Concern. All right. So I'm just gonna set this off to the side. So right now, guys, we have our scallion, we have our cilantro, we have our garlic, we have our parsley. All right, we're gonna set that off to the side. Chop our spinach. Give me a second to clean my board. All these little bits, I'm just gonna get back into my bowl. Not lose of it. All right. All right, now we're gonna do 4 cups of spinach. I just have some more baby spinach here I'm gonna use. So just grab a nice
Do we lose our chef for a minute?
I think, Chris, if you can hear us, internet was great. I don't know if there was, you all started something else on the internet that's pulling energy away. But I think we can all keep chopping. I'm not going to pretend to take over, but I think we're on the chopping the spinach.
We'll be back momentarily. Enjoy the music in the meantime.
All right, I think he's back. You're on mute, Chris.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can.
I'm so sorry. It's my phone on the lovely Zoom.
No worries.
Where did I lose you?
So we were just about to start chopping spinach.
Okay.
I don't know. Is there something else like getting streamed? You were doing great. Like internet was really strong. I don't know if there's anything else that.
No.
Okay. All
I'm
right,
good. As long as you let me know. I mean, I'm good now.
Yep. Okay. We're fingers crossed. We're good. We're on to the spinach.
I love it. All right, cool. So I did one bunch of spinach already. So you want to do 4 cups. Now, what I was trying to say before, and I don't know if it cut out, is you can use baby spinach. You can use larger pieces of spinach. Once again, wash your spinach before you use it. For me, I love baby spinach because the pieces are nice and you can use them whole. In this recipe, I'm just going to do thin strips. So what I like to do is, without damaging or bruising the spinach, I'm just going to kind of roll it nice and loosely and just run my knife through the top here to do nice thin strips. All right. And once again, we're looking for 4 cups approximately. Doesn't have to be exact. You'll be okay if it's 4.5. You'll be okay if it's 3.5. This is about a cup here. And I have my measuring cup just to show so everybody knows. Once again, I just, as a reference point, I'll have one next to me and just make sure that I'm, staying in line with what I imagine is an actual cup. So that's pretty much just an overflowing cup. Not a problem at all. Recipes can get confusing when they call for chopped versus non. When measuring, just because 4 cups of whole spinach versus chopped is significantly different. So we want to do that 4 times. So 4 cups all in all. We are almost done here. All right. And this is where with the recipe Kuku Sabzi I was mentioning, you can easily just take out the spinach and substitute it for the same amount of herbs. If you love herbs like I do, it's a fun thing you can do at home. You can also just kind of freestyle this recipe. So we're going to just keep doing thin strips of spinach. If whole leaves are in there, it doesn't matter. It's going to eat just as well. But this is where you can start adding fun things and making your own versions of kuku. Subbing out for collard greens or Swiss chard or kale or whatever. You just have to treat the vegetable knowing that some things are going to eat well raw, some won't. Like a hard Swiss chard, I would recommend maybe lightly sauteing before adding. Spinach is so excellent raw that there's no issue there. Kale really depends on the type of kale, but I would recommend maybe cooking that in advance as well. So last bit of spinach here on my end, guys, so we can hit 4 cups. And that is going to be all she wrote. All right. Beautiful. All right, is everybody all caught up? Yeah?
I think we're doing good. Thumbs up.
Right. Love it. I'm going to grab a larger mixing bowl just so I can mix everything in front of you guys. I'll be right back. All right. So, big mixing bowl here, just so you guys can see. We're going to take our eggs. All right. So we have 7 eggs here. Go ahead and crack your egg into the bowl. All right. All 7. We're going to start to add the remainder of our ingredients. So notice in like a frittata or a quiche, you'll have way more eggs in this. This is where this recipe differs once again from classic, Italian preparations or French preparations. And so we have our eggs here broken up. I'm going to set my eggs off to the side, my egg shells, excuse me. And I believe the recipe is telling us, yep. And then we're just going to add all these ingredients, but let's do a quick fork mix or whisk, whatever you have, of the eggs and egg yolks. So we're just going to break everything up. We're not looking to go crazy and beat the eggs. Just a nice little mix here. All right. Beautiful. All mixed up. Now we're going to add our spice blend that we made before, the baking powder, the salt, advieh, turmeric, black pepper. Add that in. Give that a mix. All right. Let's mix that together. Now we're going to add our herbs and our vegetables here. I'm going to add my caramelized onions from before. Get every last bit in there. All that flavor. All right, so now we've got everything in the bowl here. And we're going to add this, and then we're going to add our rice flour. That's going to be or regular flour, whatever you have. I choose rice because it's gluten-free. You're just going to mix all this up. Just make sure it's well coated. All right. Using my spatula. Not mixing too much. I'm going to add my flour. Just kind of sprinkle that in. All right. There we have it. So now, guys, we're just going to go to our ovens. And I do not have the baking tray. If you guys have a quarter sheet tray, as the recipe spec'd for, or the half sheet tray, excuse me, we can go ahead and start oiling those. Al, will you follow me to the kitchen? I'm going to be using 2 pans that are oven proof. So what I'm going to do is just put a little bit of oil in each one, just to make sure it doesn't stick. That's the only reason we're doing that. All right. And you can stay here. I'm going to grab a towel just to evenly wipe the sides of the pan down. This is just so it comes out of the pan nice and cleanly. That's the only reason we're doing this. So I'm using a cast iron and a carbon steel pan, both of which have oven ready handles. All right. But if you have your baking tray, same thing, just oil line it. You've got your mixture and you're just going to go straight in. And I'm doing this on a tray. But if you have your tray or whatever you're using, you just want to spread it out. All right. So now we're just going to pat down, make a nice even layer for when this bakes. That egg's going to set everything together. All right. All right, beautiful. So if you have a sheet tray or your pans, you're just going to want nice even layers. And now we're going to go in the oven. We're ready to roll. We're going to set our timers. I'm going to set it for 15 just so I can give it a check. All right. All right, y'all. Now we wait.
Amazing. I know I'm super excited to see mine come out of the oven.
Yeah, so it's crazy herby. It's not going to look like a normal frittata would be, you know, tons more eggs, look super eggy going in. The egg on this is really going to set, and it's going to be, I mean, it's very herb and vegetable forward, which is why I love it so much. Super, super healthy, really hearty. And as I said before, eating this with flatbread, any kind of yogurt or lebna, for other fresh herbs, whatever. I mean, you can get creative with it, but it's also just delicious on its own.
Awesome. Well, Chris, this was such an amazing experience. I know everyone was chiming into the chat that they got so much more out of this, you know, just all the tips and, you know, hearing that straight from the source, So just again, want to reiterate our thankfulness for you joining us this morning and taking time. I know you said you're off to a busy day at the restaurant, so to join us here before you do that is just tremendous. Very grateful, and yeah, we're getting a lot of love in the chat. So thank you so much.
Absolutely, I'm really happy to be able to contribute. So thank you all.
Okay, awesome. Well, we'll have you log off, and for all of you who are going to stay with us for our 11 o'clock event, we will be on this same link, so you can just stay on. You know, if you need to use the restroom, grab your coffee, go ahead and do that, and we'll be back here just in a couple of minutes for the next portion of the event. But thank you so much, Chris. This was a fabulous start to our day, and we appreciate it. We're so excited for our cuckoos here in 20 minutes.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care.